Good morning, Brenda.
Good morning.
It's really nice to meet you, and I just want to say thank you for the opportunity for me to interview you. And I really would like to tell the audience how we met, which we happen to both be members of the Daughters of the American Revolution, and I am from the DAR Presidio chapter.
And I'm in San Diego in the Linares chapter.
Oh, well, very good. Very good. So we actually met in March through a District 3 video video conference call. And I was so impressed with your presentation. I immediately jumped in as soon as you were finished and said, hey, would you please be a guest on our show? So you could explain to us how you became involved with the Wreaths Across America program, and really why it's so important to you and your family, and also why it's important to the DAR.
The way that I got involved and interested in Wreaths Across America was actually 6 years ago today, when we laid our son to rest at Miramar National Cemetery. And the woman who was helping us with the arrangements for that graveside ceremony said, she sent me a flyer. She gave me a flyer and said, I think this might be something that you would be interested in. And she invited me to the next committee meeting, which I went to, and quickly decided that this was the way that I could actually stay in touch with my son, stay connected. Jeff was a combat medic, and he had what I call a medic's heart. And he would, when he was deployed, he would call me and say, so-and-so's not getting a package. Would you make sure that he gets a package? And, he was always taking care of people. And I would do the same thing. A mother would call me and say, I haven't heard from my son in 3 months. And so I'd tell him, Jeff, give him a phone card and tell him to call his mama, So we really worked together to kind of take care of his deployed soldiers. And it just felt like the perfect way for me to continue to do that.
It is the perfect way because, first of all, let me say I'm so sorry for your loss. And I can't imagine, I don't have any children, but I think it's a beautiful way for you to pay tribute to your son and to keep his memory alive and for others to get to know him. So, I think for those reasons alone, Brenda, it's a magnificent tribute to him. And in doing the Wreaths Across America program, how has that helped you to deal with your grief of the loss of your son?
Well, I think what a lot of mothers do, and I can only speak for mothers, what a lot of mothers do is they kind of throw themselves into volunteer work. And that has really helped me because the mission of Wreaths Across America is to remember our fallen United States veterans, honor those who serve and have served, and teach the next generation the cost and the value of freedom. And those three things have really just kind of taken over my life. Of course, to remember our fallen veterans, that's a no-brainer. That helps me when we place that wreath on Jeff's headstone, or we always say their names out loud. Anytime we place a wreath on anyone's headstones, we say their name out loud, because it's said that people die twice: the first time when they take their last breath, and then the second time when their name is said out loud for the last time. So one of the things that is striking and moving about Wreaths Across America is that all across the country, it's done on one particular day, and we are simultaneous. So it starts at Arlington National Cemetery, which where it all began. It starts at Arlington National Cemetery on noon, and in San Diego Pacific time, we start at 9. So we're all starting at the same time, and we all have a moment of silence at the same time. And it's just is very special and moving that 3.5 or 4.5 or however many people that are participating that year stop at the same time in the United States and think about these fallen veterans and the sacrifices that they've made. And can you just imagine the spirit that we conjure up during that time? You know, it's just it's just spectacular, and it's something that once you are part of, you will always be part of.
Exactly. And to that point, because of your presentation last month, I made the commitment to my chapter that I will forever do these for my parents
Oh, good.
for the DAR Presidio chapter.
Mhm.
Because I history repeats itself if we do not remember what happened before. And why do we forget? And we don't need to. That is the power of the Wreaths across America. And every veteran, whether he lived 20 years or 105 years, they deserve to be recognized for being a veteran. And
Absolutely.
for all the sacrifices throughout their life, because, you know, going into the military, they don't make that process easy. That
No.
is not an easy way to go in life. And myself, being born and bred in the military, my own parents had their own issues with their military service. In fact, to be honest with you, they were all disabled veterans because of their service during World War II. But in spite of all their sacrifices, you know, I still wanted to join the military. For me, it was one of the best decisions I ever made in my life because I'm better for it. I'm a better
Yes.
person for
Yes.
it.
Yes. And you know, even if you're a veteran and you never deployed, never saw any combat, never had any kind of conflict that you were involved in throughout the world, even just being a veteran is a sacrifice. And I don't think that most people don't realize that.
So the importance of remembering those who have fallen, we can't say that enough, especially considering we are members of the Daughters of the American Revolution, and that is part of what they do is they want you to remember the veterans. They want you to remember the military service because that's how we all got here.
Right, exactly. And like you said, we have to remember the history. We have to remember our history and we have to learn from it. That's the whole, in my opinion, the whole purpose of history. And the real heartbreaking thing about the what they call the cancel culture now, where, you know, tearing down history or trying to not think about history. You know, that's why that's how we learn. That's how we learn not to repeat ourselves in the negative things. So
Well, hopefully that is how we learn. But everybody has. Thank God we're in a democracy because we do have the right to express our opinion, and democracy rules. I mean, that's the whole idea. You know, the majority rules. That's what I meant to
right,
say. Um,
right.
so it's all about how do we keep what we got.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, can I tell you a little bit about how Wreaths Across America actually started?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, there's a gentleman who lives in Maine who is a wreath maker. And in 1992, he had about 5,000 wreaths left over from the season and was trying to figure out what he wanted to do with them. He wanted to do something that would honor someone or do some good. And he always had been a very patriotic person. So he decided that he and his family would take those wreaths to Arlington and place them on the headstones of the oldest veterans there, which would have been the Revolutionary War patriots, the Civil War patriots, and our War of 1812 veterans. Just their family. Nobody knew anything about it. The trucker who took the wreaths and their family, they did that from 1992 until 2005. And in 2005, a photographer happened to be out there the day after they placed the wreaths and took a picture that actually is now the iconic picture. It was a beautiful picture of the white and gray marble headstones and a little bit of snow on the ground and those beautiful green wreaths with the red bows on top. And it just is a beautiful picture. And it went viral. So Morrill didn't even know what going viral meant at that time. But he started getting checks in the mail. People started sending him money because they wanted to help him expand the program. And he did not have any vehicle to put the money in, so he had to send all the checks back. And they decided, well, you know what, maybe this is something. They had never thought about expanding any of this. They thought maybe, gosh, people want to help. People want to get involved with this. So maybe we should do something. So it took them 2 years to get their 501(c) taken care of. And in 2007, that was the first year that about 100, maybe 150 cemeteries participated in the very first Wreaths Across America ceremony. And the ceremony entails honoring our fallen veterans. We place ceremonial wreaths for each branch of the military, plus the MOW or POW MIAs and Merchant Marines. So we honor all of our veterans that have served. But the other things are things that most people don't know about. For instance, there is a convoy that leaves Harrington, Maine, where the wreaths are loaded onto the trucks. There's about 18 wheelers that leave Harrington, take about a week to make it down from Maine to Arlington. They carry over 500,000 wreaths to lay at the headstones of those veterans. And probably 100, maybe 200,000 people come and meet the convoy to place wreaths at Arlington. I asked the location coordinator at Arlington if there's any way that he can control the crowd. And he said, oh, no, 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 no. He said, you can't control 200,000 people. I just let them go. So I'm actually going to get to be there this year. So it's going to be really interesting to see the beautiful chaos of Arlington National Cemetery. When the convoy goes down from Harrington to Arlington, they make about 25 stops along the route, using those stops as opportunities to educate kids, to educate the public about Wreaths Across America. They stop in schools and fire departments, and really anywhere that they can schedule it. They always have a wreath ceremony to present the ceremonial wreaths of the 7 branches of the military, plus the POW MIAs and Merchant Marines. And it's just really moving for everybody. Everybody loves for them to come through. Fire trucks come and make their little bridges for the trucks to run under and everything. It's just a really big honor for those towns.
It is a great way for the community to get together and to learn each other's history.
Absolutely. And that's really the beautiful thing about Wreaths Across America, is that it brings the communities together. You know, it's not just a couple of individuals doing this. We like the entire community to be together to do this, because we owe those guys, all of us, every single one of us owe those guys and gals.
Yes, ma'am.
One of the things that people really do not know is the heart ceremonies, which is the honoring allies and remembering together. The night before the convoy leaves Harrington, Maine, there are 3 ceremonies at 3 different international border crossing bridges between Canada and the United States. There's a Montana and Alaska and Canadian border, kind of a threesome right there. Then we have Michigan and Ontario, and Maine and New Brunswick. And what happens is a beautiful, a Gold Star mother from the United States will walk out halfway into the halfway point of the bridge, and a Canadian Silver Star mother, which is the equivalent of our Gold Star mother, a Canadian Silver Star mother will meet our Gold Star mother, and our Gold Star mother will hand the Canadian mom a wreath, a ceremonial wreath that has the Canadian service flags in it. And then she will take that back and put it on the memorials for the Silver Star mothers in the Canadian town. So it's not just about our United States veterans. We also want to remember our allies that have been our allies since we have been born. The policy of the National Cemetery Administration and the policy of Wreaths Across America is to not place wreaths at the headstones of our Jewish veterans. And it's not because of Christian or Jewish or any kind of a religion thing. It's because we want to respect their customs. And so it bothered me, though, that I would see Jewish headstones on Wreath Day with no wreaths, and it appeared that no one had actually said their name out loud, when I know that people had, but there just was not that visual symbol. And I didn't like it. So I called a couple of rabbis that do ceremonies at Miramar for them and asked them what we could do. I tried to convince them that it wasn't a Christmas wreath, but when they asked me what color the ribbon was and when we laid them in December, I realized that I was not going to win that battle, but because we call them remembrance wreaths, we don't call them Christmas wreaths. But I asked them, what can we do to use as a visual symbol to let people know that we remembered those veterans? And they both suggested that we place stones at the head, on the top of the headstones. So, and I'm not clear what the symbolism is. I just know that the stone is very symbolic to the Jewish faith. So in 2016, that was the first year that we placed stones on at the headstones. We have our Jewish American veterans in San Diego come and place them. We were the first cemetery to start it, and I'm happy to say that more and more cemeteries are starting to do it. They're kind of leading the way. So, and the feedback that we've gotten from our Jewish families, they're very, very touched, very touched.
Well, I think that just goes hand in hand to what the DAR does.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Keeping not just the memories of the military alive and recording our history, but respecting the traditions of all Americans, because that's really, what we're trying to do here.
Right. And we have a couple of Muslim veterans that are buried at Miramar, and I know that there are more all over the country. And their custom is not to put anything on the grave at all, because they consider it a desecration to the grave. So we ask people not to place wreaths at their headstones, but to stand there, say their name out loud, thank them for their service in a silent prayer if they want to, and move forward. But at least we know that everybody's being remembered. Even if we don't have enough wreaths to cover, we want everybody to go and remember every veteran that's buried there. So those are some of the ways that we remember our fallen veterans. And then the second part of Wreaths Across America is honoring our active duty military and the veterans that are still living. And a couple of ways that we do that. One way that I like to start talking about, and this was a 100% selfish thing that I did, because we have 3,500 people who come to help us at Miramar. Sometimes the Cub Scouts and the little kids get anxious and excited, and they like to see how many wreaths they can toss on the headstones and kind of make it a competition. And I was having feedback from mothers and fathers and daughters and grandkids and everybody else that they weren't able to place the wreath on their loved one's headstone. So in San Diego, we have a target-rich environment of active duty military. And I started asking for volunteers from Miramar Air Station, that's right next door to Miramar National Cemetery. So we've got 2 Marine Corps stations and 3 or 4 Navy. And I started asking for volunteers. And what I used those volunteers for was to stand vigil behind the headstone of whose family members I knew were going to be there to place a wreath. So they kind of stood guard. And it was so beautiful. I hadn't really thought it through to think about what would this be like. I just wanted to be there to place the wreath on my son's headstone. So like I said, it was totally selfish. And after we placed our wreath, the Army captain, Jeff was in the Army, the Army captain pulled me aside and she said to me, "This has been the biggest honor of my military career." And I never thought about that. Like I said, it was just totally selfish. I didn't think about how it would impact these Marines and these sailors and these soldiers. And then I stopped and thought, of course it is, because for these men and women escorting their brothers or sisters home for the last time, anything that they can do to honor that memory and that sacrifice of that service member is an honor for them. So I think this is one of the biggest ways that we at my location honor our active duty military, is by asking them to stand vigil and guard, if you will, that headstone for the family members to be there.
That's what we're fighting for.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. We use off-duty Marines to help us offload the trucks. The truckloads of wreaths that come, we get 2 full 18-wheelers at Miramar. And those kids will do, I call them kids. They'd die if I called them kids. They heard me call them kids, but those kids will do anything I ask them to do. They are the most amazing young men and women. Every time I interact with those Marines or those Navy sailors, anybody that's in the military, it gives me such hope for the future of our country, because they are amazing young people. And we are so fortunate to have them be part of our country. There are over 700 truckers that donate their rig and their fuel and their meals and their time to deliver these wreaths. A lot of them start in Maine. We've got 2 truckers that start in Maine and come all the way to San Diego. And they were virgin truckers this last year. They had never done it before, and they both said that they will do it until they can't drive anymore. So most of them are veterans that drive these trucks. And a lot of the wreaths are shipped by rail, and the truckers will go to the depots across the country and pick them up then and distribute them to wherever it is that they're going. But we could not do it without those truckers, and they're just magnificent men and women. There is a radio station called Wreaths Across America Radio that just now got put on the iHeartRadio list. So we're getting known out there. You can find it on your app store, Android or iPhone, and you can also stream it on your computer. It's just wreathsacrossamerica.org/radio. The thing that here's what I've just recently really realized is that Wreaths Across America is, in my book, a very successful nonprofit. And I really had the aha moment of why they are so successful, besides just the mission. So they are so committed to the organizations that support them in being successful, like the Boy Scouts and the Civil Air Patrol and the 4-H clubs and the Young Marines and DAR chapters and VFWs and any 501c3 that has anything to do with veterans or the military or anything really. You don't even have to be that. You can be a sponsorship group. That group can be a sponsorship group to help sponsor wreaths for the location that you want to support. They've given back since 2007 when they started the payback program. They will pay you back for every $15 wreath. They pay that organization back $5 of that. And since 2007, they've given back over $14 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. 33% of what they take in, they give back. And that's big for a fundraiser. But
yes,
what they call that the Do Good Twice program, because they know that what these organizations are going to do is do good again in the community. So they've sponsored a wreath, that's a do good. And then they get the $5 back, and they know that they're going to support veterans programs or support active duty military or support education, whatever. So they're doing good twice.
It's a never-ending circle. It's a never-ending, it's perpetual.
Yes. And that's what these people do. The people at Wreaths Across America, their hearts are 100% in this organization, and they just constantly look for ways to give back, give back, give back, give back. And it's just an inspiring place to be and an inspiring family to be part of. And this year's theme, we have a theme every year. Last year was Live a Life Worth Fighting For. This year, the theme is Live Up to Their Legacy.
That's great, considering what happened to everybody last year with the COVID. And yes, perfectly said.
Yeah. Last year with COVID, we had, the year before, in 2019, we placed 2.2 million wreaths. In 2020, with COVID, we thought we were going to be really a lot lower than that, but we sponsored 1.7 million wreaths. So it really, for the time that we were in, it really did not decrease as much as we thought it was going to. And even though we couldn't have the 3 million volunteers throughout the country, we had to really limit that down. People still participated.
Because it's an important thing to do, especially during a pandemic.
Absolutely. And remember that, I don't know if you saw this, but Arlington had actually announced that they weren't going to do it this year. and or last year in 2020, they said we're not going to do it. But the president and one of the higher ups, I can't remember who in the Pentagon, the highest guy in the Pentagon, chief of staff, I guess, said, yeah, you are. So Arlington wound up doing it because they knew how important it is to the United States that for 1 hour, 1 day in 1 year, the country comes together to remember, honor, and teach.
Yes, ma'am. And I can't think of a better way to end this interview than with that statement. Is there, wow, Brenda, wow. I'm very impressed with you and what you're doing and living your life of service. Is there anything else you would like to say?
No, I just really appreciate, I love making sure that as many people that can learn about Wreaths Across America and what it is and what it isn't. It really is not about Wreaths. Thank you for having me.
Of course, never forget.
Never forget.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
It's an honor. Thank you. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you.